You know the feeling, right? You've just polished off an amazing meal. You're full, you're happy, and that couch is just calling your name. We've all been there. But what if I told you that super common, totally harmless seeming habit has some pretty surprising and even serious downsides? Today, we are going to break down exactly what happens inside your body when you lie down right after you eat. So here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with why we get so sleepy after a big meal. Then we'll dive into that immediate ugh feeling of indigestion. After that, things get really interesting with a hidden impact on your muscles you probably never expected. We'll also look at some of the more serious long-term risks, and then, don't worry, we'll wrap it all up with some simple, smart strategies you can literally start using tonight. All right, first things first, let's talk about that powerful, almost irresistible urge to just zonk out after eating. It's a real thing. It's biology, not just you being lazy, I promise.
It's such a universal experience, isn't it? You crush a big lunch and bam, your brain just wants to shut down for a while. So what's the deal? What is actually happening in there that makes you feel so tired?
Well, it really boils down to a few key things. For one, when you eat foods with protein and carbs, it can ramp up your brain's production of serotonin. That's the feel-good neurotransmitter that also happens to make you feel sleepy. At the same time, your body is hard at work, sending a ton of extra blood flow down to your stomach to handle digestion. And of course, there's the famous amino acid tryptophan, the stuff in turkey that gets all the blame on Thanksgiving, which definitely adds to that lethargic feeling.
Okay, so now we know why we want to lie down. Let's talk about why we probably shouldn't. The most immediate and honestly the most common consequences are all about what's happening in your gut.
And this slide just perfectly sums up the core issue. When you're sitting or standing up, gravity is your digestive system's best friend. It helps pull everything down and keeps your stomach acid right where it belongs, in your stomach. But the moment you lie down, you're suddenly fighting against gravity. It's like opening a gate that allows all that food and corrosive stomach acid to flow backward right up into your esophagus. Yikes. And that backward flow, that's what we call acid reflux. It's the culprit behind all those super uncomfortable symptoms. We're talking about that classic burning in your chest or heartburn, that sour taste in the back of your throat, bloating, belching, just that general awful feeling of indigestion that can absolutely ruin a good night's sleep. And look, if this is happening to you all the time, it can turn into a chronic condition known as GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. That's when the reflux is so frequent that it starts to actually irritate and damage the delicate lining of your esophagus. But believe it or not, the story doesn't end with heartburn. As we're about to see, some fascinating new science has uncovered a totally hidden consequence of this habit, and it has to do with your muscles. So get this, a 2017 study in a journal called Applied Physiology, Nutrition, and Metabolism decided to look at what happens to our protein absorption when we eat in different positions. And honestly, the results are pretty mind-blowing, especially if you care at all about fitness or, just getting the most nutrients from your food. So what we're looking at here is a comparison of something called leucine. Leucine is one of the most important amino acids for building and repairing muscle. It's like the main trigger. The study found that when people ate their protein sitting upright, their peak leucine levels hit about 213. But when they were lying down, it only reached 193. That's a pretty significant drop. So what does that actually mean for you? Well, it means that lying down physically slows down how quickly your stomach empties its contents. And that delay actually blunts your body's ability to absorb those crucial amino acids from the protein you just ate. You're basically shortchanging your muscles and not getting the full benefit of that meal. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The researchers who did the study were crystal clear. I'm quoting them directly here. An upright body position is recommended when aiming to optimize postprandial muscle protein accretion. In plain English, if you want to build muscle, stay upright after you eat. Simple as that. All right, so we have immediate discomfort and this weird hidden impact on our muscles. But what if this is your go-to move every single night? Well, making a habit of it can lead to some much more serious problems down the line. And this is where things get a little, uh-oh. If you're constantly letting stomach acid wash back into your esophagus, it can cause some real damage, like chronic inflammation and even painful ulcers. Over a long period, it can lead to something called Barrett's esophagus, which is a condition where the actual cells in your esophagus start to change to protect themselves. And that change, unfortunately, can be a precursor to cancer. On top of that, there's even a potential link to weight gain, since your body just isn't getting a chance to burn any of those calories you just consumed. And the potential risks go even further. A study out of Greece found a really startling connection to cardiovascular health. It suggested that people who waited at least an hour after dinner before going to bed had a 66% lower risk of stroke. 66%! That is a massive difference from such a small change in habit. Okay, I know that was a lot of pretty heavy cautionary stuff, but here is the fantastic news. Preventing all of these issues is actually incredibly simple. So let's flip the script and talk about some easy, actionable things you can do. If you only remember one thing from this whole entire explainer, please let it be this number: 3. 3 hours. That's the magic window. Across the board, experts recommend waiting about 3 hours after your last meal before you lie down for the night. That gives your stomach plenty of time to do its job and dramatically cuts down on your risk of reflux. Now, that 3-hour rule is your best bet, but it's not your only option. Even just a light 10-minute walk after you eat can do wonders for getting digestion moving. If you absolutely have to rest, grab some pillows and prop your head and shoulders up. And, this is a cool one we'll talk about next, try sleeping on your left side. And of course, try to avoid those common trigger foods like super spicy or fatty meals right before bed. So why the left side? What's the deal with that? It's all about basic anatomy. Because of the natural shape and position of your stomach, lying on your left side cleverly positions the opening to your esophagus above the level of your stomach acid. So gravity is back to being your friend again, making it physically harder for that acid to splash back up. How cool is that?
You know, it really makes you think, doesn't it? We spend so much time and energy obsessing over what we eat, but maybe, just maybe, one of the simplest and most powerful changes we can make for our digestion, our muscles, and our long-term health is all about what we do in those few hours after we put the fork down. It seems like such a small thing, but it's a habit with surprisingly huge consequences.
Okay, let's talk about it. Lying down after a meal, is it really that bad for you? We've all been there. That sleepy feeling after a good meal is super powerful, right? Turns out, your posture right after you eat, it matters a whole lot more than you might think. So let's break down what's actually happening inside your body when you do this. See, when you're standing up, gravity is basically your digestion's best friend. But lying down, it basically puts the brakes on your stomach emptying out properly. And we're not talking a little bit. One study found it slows down by almost 25%. This also messes with how your body absorbs key nutrients, like protein for muscle building. So, what's the most immediate consequence? A little something we all know and hate: heartburn. When you lie flat, it just makes it way too easy for that stomach acid to go north. Okay, occasional heartburn is one thing, but making it a habit, that can lead to some really serious issues. And what's really wild is that the risks go beyond just digestion. We're talking cardiovascular health. One major study even found waiting just an hour after dinner can slash stroke risk by 2/3. Okay, so what's the fix? Well, the good news is experts all agree on one really simple rule. It all comes down to this: the 3-hour rule. That's the magic number. That wait gives your stomach plenty of time to empty out, which seriously cuts down on that reflux risk. And just look at the data. You get real, measurable benefits for your heart and your blood sugar. But what if you can't wait that long? Or maybe you just need a little snack? Well, these small tweaks can make a huge difference in how you feel later. So why the left side specifically? It's all about your stomach's anatomy. It makes it harder for acid to escape. So the big takeaway? It's not just about what you eat, but how you rest after. It's a really good question to ask yourself next time you finish dinner, isn't it?